One fact for every episode of a certain magical index so far. Let's get to it. Now these facts could be animation errors, airing discrepancies, cultural references, adaptation differences, etc. As the title suggests, this video only covers the main index series, which is 74 episodes across 3 seasons, along with the movie. This means the Index Time specials will not be included, since I don't think they're important to talk about for this kind of topic. It also means that the side stories, Railgun and Accelerator, will not be covered. But if this video does well and people like it, I might do a video on those too in the future. Without further ado, let's start with Season 1. Academy City. The Columbus's egg Komoe mentions in this scene isn't defined, unlike in the light novel, where it means the Esper has to make the egg stand on its tip using their abilities without touching or ruining it. In Ocentius, the Witch Hunter King, one of the rune marking style used is Kanon. In Old English, the rune is pronounced Seen, which means torch, but the symbol used is the Elder Futhark shape. I'll talk about that other rune marking later in the video. Necessarius, the Church of Necessary Evil. During the scene with Style and Kizaki on the rooftop, the latter is not wearing her belt. No idea why, and it's strange that Style never commented on that. Perfect memory ability. The sword Kizaki carries and uses during her fight with Toma is an Odachi. Limit, 12 o'clock. The symbol that Style drew on one of the walls in Komoe's apartment is a unicursal hexagram, which, relative to this series, is usually depicted with a 5-petaled flower in the center of Aleister Crowley's The Lima. Imagine Breaker. The phrase Index uses is Aramic for, my God, why have you forsaken me? It's one of the 7 last words that Jesus is said to have spoken during his crucifixion. It even appears in the Gospel of Matthew and the Gospel of Mark in the New Testament of the Bible. The science cult, Misawa Cram School. The McConnell hamburger restaurant seen in this episode is a parody of the McDonald's chain of hamburger restaurants. Ars Magna, Golden Transmutation. Aureolus's titular Ars Magna ability is Latin for great work. Deep Blood, Vampire Killer. While in her sleep, Index speaks of wanting apples from Aomori. She is referring to the Aomori Prefecture in Japan, which is famous for its apple orchards. Mikoto Misaka. The frame used in this meme originates from this episode.
You bested Makoto Misaka. That's not something a lot of people can say.
Sisters. During her fight against Accelerator, Misaka 10031 uses the base version of an FNF 2000 fully automatic bull-up assault rifle. It weighs 3.6 kilos, meaning it isn't that hard to carry compared to other variants of the rifle. Level 6, Absolute Ability. Several frames from the bridge scene in episode 1 are reused in this episode, which mostly takes place in that same bridge. The bridge itself is based on the real-life Maruko Bridge from Tokyo. Accelerator, One Way. Accelerator created a dust explosion by igniting the flower from a railway cargo holding area. Dust explosions are a danger to those working in enclosed spaces like coal mines. Weakest versus strongest, strongest versus weakest. While his hand was on Misaka 10032's chest, the flags Toma mentions refers to games such as dating sims and visual novels, where triggering certain scenarios or flags can lead to good endings. In this case, he's implied to have entered the Emoto route, if you will. Angel Fall. The 3 words Kuroko says on the TV in this scene of the episode "Yes, we can!" directly references Barack Obama's Yes We Can slogan for the 2008 United States presidential campaign. When the episode aired, Obama had already been elected as the 44th president of the United States, although he wouldn't assume office until later the same month. Toya Kamijo, Father. When this episode, 15 and 17, first aired on TV, the first opening theme of this season, PSI Missing, was used. This was changed in the DVD Blu-ray release, which is what's used in this video. The Power of God, Archangel. The names of the origami figures Tsushimikado uses in his spell:
Suzaku, Seiru, Genbu,
represent the four symbols, which are mythological creatures among the Chinese constellations along the ecliptic. They are viewed as the guardians of the four cardinal directions, hence the different directions he throws each origami in. Replica, imposter. Boys love, which Misaka references when asking Maika what kind of manga she's into, refers to fictional media that centers around erotic or romantic relationships between males. Here in the West, it's more commonly referred to as yaoi. Last Order, the end. The yellow car Aomai drives is a Lexus LFA concept. It's the only car among the other cars in this episode that is traditionally rendered. Virus code, final signal. If you pause the episode during the part where Accelerator memorizes Last Order's data file, you can make out the names Kazuma Kamachi, Motoi Fuyukawa, Chuya Kogino, and ASCII Media Works, all within the code. Counterstop, identity unknown. The golden ratio index references is a ratio between two numbers that equal approximately 1.618. It is strongly associated with the Fibonacci sequence. Golem, stone figure. The grenade anti-skill uses inside a tunnel is an M67 grenade. Friends, Hyoka Kazakiri. In the sea where Sphinx runs away from Index, a store named Rawson can be seen in the background. This is a reference to the Lawson chain of stores. Imaginary Number School District, 5-element agency. In the broadcast version of this episode, if you pause at the very moment Toma looks away from Hyoka in this scene, you can see that the color used on Toma's skin is not colored on his head, making him look headless. This was fixed in the Blu-ray release. Next up is Season 2. The last day, August 31st. The rope pattern Oma uses to tie and subdue Index is a reference to Shibari or Kimbaku. The Book of the Law. The titular Book of the Law is officially named Liber Alveligus, which was written by Aleister Crowley in 1904. By the time the first Index volume was published, it would have already been a century since the Book of the Law was completed. The Amakusa Church. The sword Tatamiya carries and uses in fights is called the Flamberge, a medieval sword from France. Sheol Fear, voice of the Magic Bane. Index's titular Sheol Fear is a reference to Sheol, an early concept of the afterlife Jewish scriptures. It's described in the Hebrew Bible as a place of darkness where both the righteous and unrighteous dead go, with no regards to lifestyle. Lotus Wand. When Style and Laura walk in the streets of London, they pass a building called A Hard Day's Night, with a sign called Let It Be. Both are named after their respective films, albums, and songs by the British rock band The Beatles. Remnant, Wreckage. The scene of Misaka and Kuroko in the shower is actually the third time the anime series adapts the scene from Volume 8 of the light novel. The first is during the epilogue of episode 24 of the first season, and the second is during the first episode of Railgun. While each have slight differences, they all end with Misaka harming Kuroko after invading her shower stall. Move point, coordinate relocation. The scene of Accelerator asking Last Order what she's babbling about while speaking with Misaka 10032 is anime original, whereas in the light novel, Last Order says to Misaka 10032 that he, meaning Accelerator, hasn't come back from where he went, implying he already left to search for the tree diagram remnants. The Daihase Festival. The operating system Laura uses to communicate with Alistair is similar to that of the Windows 7 OS. Nostalgic, I'll say. Route disturbed, pursuit inhibited. This is the very first time Kongo appears on screen in the Index anime. If her exchange with Kuroko in Volume 8 was adapted there and not Railgun, then it wouldn't be. Shorthand, stenographic sourcebook. In this shot of Toma walking towards his parents, their legs are missing under the table. Given how the previous shot showed their legs and how close they are to the table's ceiling, it's hard not to notice this once you do notice it. This mistake in the broadcast version was fixed in the Blu-ray release. Stab Sword. The card style used to turn the bystanders away from Himegami's body has the Soilu rune. The symbol used is pronounced Sigil in Old English, which means sun. Belvedere, the observatory. The place where Toma and Tsushimikado hang out in this scene is actually the same place where Toma, Index, and Misaka cross paths in the first ending sequence. Crochet di Pietro, Apostolic Cross. Thanks to this shot of Toma's phone, we get an idea of how each day of the Daihase festival is organized. On day 1, a total of 20 events happen, some of which we actually see in both the Index and Railgun Daihase arcs. City of Water. Actual locations and landmarks of Chioggia are used as background material for this episode. The most notable ones include Porta di Santa Maria, the Refugium Peccatorium Cathedral, the Ponte Vigo Bridge, and Canal Vena. Queen's Fleet. The Amaxa sailboats resemble those of a cog ship, with a single mast and square-rigged sail. Rosary of the Appointed Time. The statue of the Madonna and Child can be seen as a figurehead of the Queen's Fleet in the Adriatic Sea. Penalty Game. Kuroko's ribbons from this episode to the end of the season are red as opposed to white in the original winter uniform designed by Haimura. This was fixed from Index 3 onwards. Serial number, specimen number. The Grateful Crane last order references in this scene is based on a story from Japanese folklore about a crane who returns a favor to a man. The Researcher, Amada Gihara. The weapon the Hound Dog members can be seen wielding is an IWI Taver TAR-21 bullpup assault rifle. Hound Dog, Hound Squad. The design of the olfactory sensor is completely different from how it was described in the light novel. There, it was said to be a small pistol-shaped device. Here, it looks like a minesweeping device. Testament, luring device. The grenade Accelerator pulls several pins from is an M26 hand grenade. Multiple of these are strong enough combined to kill everyone in the office except Accelerator, but that's not what happened. The Divine Retribution spell. In the scene where Vento explains what Hyoka did, you can see that the background behind her in this shot is hugely pixelated. Pre-war. This is Skill Out's first appearance in the Index anime, while their actual first appearance in the franchise was in episode 15 of Railgun. Skill Out, Armed Gang. Kuroko and Ueharu's conversation at the end of the episode reuses the exact animation from a scene in episode 20.
We're getting demerits for sure. The only question now is how many.
That is unfortunate.
Let's take a detour for a quick second and discuss a fact from the movie. Miracle of Endymion. The obelisk that commemorates the Miracle 88 has a quote from Blaise Pascal. The whole thing reads as follows. Time heals griefs and quarrels, for we change and are no longer the same persons. Neither the offender nor the offended are any more themselves. Our last stop for today is Season 3. Unrest. The French on the picket signs shown in the news is incorrect. Nous resistor, for example, is supposed to say nous résistons, which translates to we resist, and ne partez pas de côté Dieu is meant to be ne lisez partir de côté, which translates to do not leave the side of God, the right seat of God. Litvia's incantation in this episode,
San Pietro, slips through the evil clutches of the Emperor and Sorcerer.
References both Emperor Nero of Rome, the Emperor when Peter was crucified, and Simon Magus, who in Christian tradition confronted Peter with his magic. The Document of C. The scene where Misaka talks to Toma from her phone is taken from a scene from the PV of Index 3 that was shown in Comic Cat 94. Instead of taking place during the day, however, it takes place at night, due to differing time zones between Academy City and Avignon. The dark side of Academy City. In this shot of the computer group is using in this scene, if you look at the bottom left of the taskbar, you can see that the name of the operating system reads Study OS. Study was an organization seen in Railgun S's Silent Party arc, meaning that this is the first time the arc is referenced in other ToAru material. Dark Matter. The scene where Frenda gets beaten up by Kakine is anime original. Poor girl, she had her whole life ahead of her. Super Espers. Hamazura had 2 handguns during his fight with Mugino. One of those he got from Hattori, but the scene in the LN where he gives it to Hamazura while noting that it was a lady's gun was cut from the anime, just like most things that were cut in this season. The third level. The place where Itsuwa and Toma talk about Aqua's challenge is the same one where Index had lunch with Monaka Oyafune back in the first episode. Saints Breakout. Toma's condition while in hospice at the start of the episode is that he lost so much blood that he's going into hypovolemic shock. His body would need to recover some of that blood. This is called reflex tachycardia. Holy Mother veneration. In the scene with him and the Pope, Fiamma says that it is in England. After the Pope asks what he means by it, Fiamma dodges the question as the anime cuts to an outside view of St. Peter's Basilica. The light novel does sort of explain what that something is, but it's written like this. Skybus 365. The airport in Paris that Toma's plane stops at bears resemblance to Charles de Gaulle Airport. British Labyrinth. Since this episode mostly takes place in England, several landmarks can be seen. A few of these include the BT Tower, London Eye, Trafalgar Square with its statues, and the London Underground. Mercenary. The Eurostar train that Toma rides to Folkestone looks to be a Class 373 Eurostar E300. It even has the traditional color scheme they have used since the Channel Tunnel's opening in 1994. Cortana Original. The Knight Leader's spell of Thororm is based on the Icelandic saga of Gunlokker Serpent Tongue, where Gunlokker fights a berserker named Thororm, whose eyes can dole out any weapon they see. Heroes. The rune Remea uses for her communication spell is Anzus, which means God, or, fittingly, communication. This is also that other rune marking style used back in episode 2 of season 1. Both meanings are from the Old English language. Spark Signal. On his computer, you can see that the part is using a Windows OS, probably Windows 7 by the looks of it. The Governing Board. The character Tecpatl is named after an obsidian knife Aztecs use for human sacrifices. It's also a symbol of Aztec mythology. Dragon. Awaz, whose epithet is the titular dragon, is a key figure in Thelema, as the entity who claims to have contacted Aleister Crowley in Egypt on April 8th to 10th, 1904, and recited the lines of what would become the Book of the Law to him. The Alliance of Independent Nations. The design of the sailing ships the Angelicans used in the Battle of Dover Strait is of the 17th to 18th century first-rate ship of the line. Misaka Worst. The animation used when Misaka Worst uses her nail gun is similar to the one used when Misaka uses her railgun in Railgun Episode 1. A Reason to Protect. The Durandal, the sword that the Maiden of Versailles uses in this episode, is the legendary sword used by Roland, a paladin and partial historical officer of Charlemagne in French epic literature. The Star of Bethlehem. GNN8, the name of the news channel shown on the TV in Mathai Reese's hospital room, is a pun on CNN. Angel Power. Gabrielle. While Toma and Sasha travel along the railway in a monorail train in this episode, in the light novel, they travel in a single monorail car. Fuse Kazakiri. During her fight with Style, Index, while in John's pen mode, uses a red light sword known as the Sword of Freyr in Norse mythology, which always claimed victory in a fight. List of prohibited books. Index. Fiamma is the second person to completely remove Toma's right arm, where Imagine Breaker is, from the body, the first being Aureolus back in season 1. Wings. The first location shown when the golem arms rise across the earth is off the coast of Barcelona, Spain. Notice the San Sebastian beach with the famous hotel of W Barcelona to the right. Son of God. On the map showing Misha Khrushchev's path to the Arctic Ocean, you can recognize a few geographical locations of the Russian far north. These are Novaya Zemlya, the Pekora River, the Ob River, the Gulf of Ob, and the Yammo Peninsula.